As I discussed in the last video, we would like to talk about exchanges and how they work and how they don't work. Now, the basic idea of don't trade good for bad pieces is clear, but how to know? Okay, I would like to give you some very specific examples. First and foremost, let's discuss a couple of very simple ways where a good and bad exchange takes place, and more importantly, the way you can evaluate it. Let us go with an opening that is known as the Caro-Kann defense. Now, this is one of the most common openings, so don't take my word for granted. It's just an idea. Now, the question is, Black has the possibility to exchange in e4, but does he really want to? Does he want to do this exchange, or this exchange is likely going to help White in his position or his play? It is a fairly important query to ask ourselves. So how do we answer that? When you think about exchanges or trades in particular, the most valuable thing is to figure out the different value of the pieces and how that exchange really arranges the position a specific way. How will that affect the position? As we could see, a pawn for pawn will be exchanged right now because we've got one attacker and one defender for both sides. However, as a result of that trade, White has actually gotten his knight on a very center position. He's controlling more space, while Black has lost one of his most important pawns, the pawn from d5. That by itself provides White with a great command and a lot of opportunities to bring out his pieces and control more possibilities. Think about that. There are many exchanges that are equal, but each exchange is going to improve or perhaps worsen some player's position. That is how we'd like to do it. So, when we are thinking now, we could say that White is going to have a lot of extra space, much of a command, and simpler ways to bring the pieces. That's how we'd like to do it. Now, let's talk about other trades. For instance, do we want to exchange this bishop for the knight? Now, as we know, the knight and the bishop are more or less equal. So we could say, fine, sure, why not? Then you need to know two things. First of all, the bishop is always slightly better for the knight when the position isn't completely closed. That is because unless the knight has some brilliant attacking perspective, so it can attack quickly from a close range, the bishop is always going to have the long run value as it's a long range piece, and it can actually dominate the knight in many different ways. For example, if the black bishop comes out, let's say with a move of this kind, so the bishop in some way kind of sets up a little combination. This is one of the good examples on, I mean, not so good probably because it doesn't necessarily restrict the knight, but it's one idea on how the knight will feel a little questionable on whether it should go back or it should go forth. Still, I'd say that due to the fact that White's knight is pretty good, I wouldn't consider it much inferior. I mean, again, they're roughly equal pieces, although the bishop is often considered better if it's on the right open diagonal. In some way, however, we could see that White's knight being so strongly placed in the middle, like very similarly to every piece in the middle, could be quite limiting. And so while the black bishop is going to feel terribly passive, what we realize is that, White's knight could quite effectively stay in such a position. So it is a nice thing. It's an interesting idea to understand. Surely there are other things and other ideas that could probably help. White can think about a move like, say, Queen e2, Bishop f4, but then we're talking just about exchanges, and exchanges are important. Now, what else would I like to tell you? Thinking of prospects, yes, the prospects for certain Ps is very necessary to look at, because unless they're actually, they're completely equal and they have no special prospects, the prospect will make it clear if you want to go for the trade or not of a specific piece. Let's talk about this. Let's evaluate the prospects of our knight as opposed to the opponent. Do we want that kind of trade? Do we not want to do it? What to do when it comes down to these pieces? Well, actually, this is very important. What you need to understand is that first and foremost, you'd like to think about the prospects of the pieces in case they do not get exchanged. Well, if we think about it right now, you'll find out that actually the white knight doesn't seem to have that many great prospects, although it could go, for example, at a g3 or around. On another hand, the black knight, well, I like to say that it may go to the d5. So I'd say that even though white's knight looks so much better and more powerful as opposed to black's, when you think about their prospects, like where they can go and what they will do in particular, it's so much easier to see what's going to happen and what becomes so specific, so special. So remember that type of idea. Thinking of each piece in perspective and finding out what the difference is. So the prospects of white and black are equal, and an exchange wouldn't actually harm us too much, as the pieces are relatively even. There is no special prospects or opportunities, and this is what we need to know. And of course, this is critical. After queen e2, short castles, rook d1. In case of the exchange, there's a recapture. It's not going to harm us. It's not going to hurt our position and our possibilities. That's what you need to remember. So the exchange is relatively equal. There is no problem about that. There's no question too. It's fine. There are many other examples, so I'd like to show you a few of them. Let's go with one of the most popular openings, the Real Lopez. Now, there's a fundamental question that a lot of players have tried to ask themselves, read many books about, and they still couldn't get the idea, should the exchange actually happen or take place, or should it not? Well, let's think about it that way. A trade on c6, ultimately, could allow black to get an open line for his bishop. However, it will create a significant disadvantage as those two pawns are going to be doubled, one on top of each other, known as double. So is this good or bad exchange? Truth be told, you can't say. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. There are some imbalances that will prove it's good, and certain things that will prove it's bad. There are possibilities that you just cannot envision, no matter how good or experienced or inexperienced you are. Thereby, we have to sometimes trust our intuition. The possibility for an exchange on c6 is considered roughly equal. There is no way to prove if it's good or not, because there are too many ways on how the game can develop. And the black disadvantage of having his double pawns is compensated by the fact that he opened up his bishop and he gains a bishop pair. The bishop pair is a special advantage when the opponent has lost one of his bishops and he's playing with two knights or with a knight and bishop. Thereby, the two bishops can support each other and they become, we call that a quality advantage. So that is how we have to consider exchanges. The concept of exchanges is, of course, very challenging. It requires a lot of precision to really assess all the important factors related. And truth be told, it's not easy. But at least now you know a little bit of what you have to remember when it comes down to exchanges certain